Hey, what's up, gamers? It's me. I'm back with another video, and today is going to be a Speedbridge tutorial. So, as you guys have seen in some of my Bed Wars videos, I am pretty decent at speedbridging. I'm like relatively consistent. I can hopefully make this bridge here, otherwise that would be really embarrassing. You guys didn't see that at all. Ah, fuck. Anyway, that wasn't really a speed bridge issue. That was more of a bad at parkour issue. So yeah, today I'm going to be showing you two types of bridges. There's going to be the typical, speed bridge that you see in all of my Bed Wars videos, which is really straightforward and consistent, and basically everybody and their mom knows how to do this one. And also, there's also the diagonal bridge, which, if I'm going to be honest, I was a lot better at when I first started speed bridging. And now, since I really just have my inventory key at night. But anyways, since I started like messing with my controls and stuff, I've gotten a little more inconsistent, and also I'm like trying to go faster. So I'm just gonna show you like the basic techniques, and then we can go into speed. So like as you can see, I was just kind of clicking there, but you really want to like hammer down your techniques, because it's better to be consistent than to be fast. Because if you're fast, you're gonna fail more, and that's just gonna waste time, especially in Bed Wars, because it's like, if you die, it's probably like 3 seconds to fall in the void, 5 seconds to respawn. I mean, depending on what map you're on, it could take really long to get all your materials back to bridge to the other island. And by that point, I mean, your first rush could have like built over you and could get your bed, and you're pretty much screwed. So you really don't want to fail your first bridge on your first rush, because at that point you're just kind of hoping that your first rush is like not very good. So yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start with the straight bridge. So let's just talk about our mechanics. So it's really important that obviously you have plenty of blocks, and what you want to do is you want to be shifted holding either A and S, or if you're weird, you can hold A and D. I personally use A and S, so it's going to be a little weird. Let's see if I can still do this. Okay. I'm not as fast this way, but it is possible to go both ways. Okay, so it also matters what fingers you use, because when I first started, I was holding shift with my thumb. Like, I would like literally fucking curl my thumb under my whole hand to hit shift, and it was a really bad idea. So you want to be using either your ring finger or your pinky finger. So normally I used my ring finger because I'm weird and my pinky has like no dexterity. However, I've recently switched over to using my pinky finger because I'm actually wearing a brace on my wrist right now that makes it physically impossible for me to reach my thumb under to do anything like when I'm doing that. So I'm trying to get used to using my pinky for shift. That's just like a new little control thing that I'm doing. So yeah, that's my excuse for when I fail a lot. Anyway, if you're using typical WASD controls, your middle finger's probably holding W, and then you've got your index and your ring finger on S and D, kind of like hovering over. Alternatively, you might have a finger on your sprint key. I know some people have the sprint key R. Mine used to be F, which is right under R. So your index finger might be occupied. But I mean, in general, you're going to use those two fingers for your strafe keys. So if you're using your pinky to speed bridge, you're going to want your middle finger on S and your ring finger on A, or in this case, it'll be your index finger on D. So that's the first step. Now you want to line yourself up against the edge of a block. Now, typically your cursor, your location isn't as specific as it would be like God bridging. Like if you're God bridging, your cursor is going to want to be in a really specific spot. And considering that I'm not a cheater, I don't know where exactly that is in the block. Anyway, so you're shifted over a block. You just kind of want your cursor somewhere like in the middle of the block. You obviously don't want it to be on an edge, because then it's just going to be like, I don't know, if you strafe and fall off. I mean, it's really easy for something to happen, like if you're going like this and all of a sudden, oh, my cursor's off the block and I just fell. So you kind of want your cursor somewhere in the middle of the block. And you also want to make sure that your mouse hand is really still, because if you're like going and then all of a sudden like you turn, then it's really easy to fall off like that. So now let's get into the actual movement. Right now, the character is trying to go off the edge, but you're holding shift. So what you want to do is you want to start by placing a block. Now, as soon as you place a block, like right after, you're going to want to unshift. So if we weren't going to unshift, we're just holding shift, we're just going to place a block and immediately start moving. So the trick to speed bridging is you unshift right after you place your block, so that way you're moving faster off the block. And that's what creates the speed when you're actually speed bridging. So you want to place a block and then unshift, and then you want to shift as soon as you get to the edge of the block. Now, the trick with going faster when speed bridging is you shift later. So you can place a block and then like shift back really fast, but that's just gonna make it slower. Like, there are people who think this is speed bridging, and I mean, I guess, but you're like literally shifting for like half the length of the block, so it doesn't really count. So, I mean, when you're first starting, it's totally fine to just kind of be really careful when you shift, but, I mean, otherwise, I would kind of try and get the timing down so that you're, like, holding shift when you're closer to the end of the block, so it's going to look something like this. So it's really rhythmic the way you go through it. It's just block, unshift, and then reshift, and then you repeat that process. So you place your block, unshift, reshift, place your block, unshift, reshift, and then just keep going like that. And if you can get that timing down, it's really easy to just kind of like get used to it. And it's totally fine if you want to start slower. There's nothing wrong with that because that's exactly how I started. So yeah, you just want to like get your timing down, and once you get your timing down, you can start like gradually speeding up. So even if you're doing something like this and you're like waiting till you're fully stopped before you place a block, then that's totally fine because that's actually like more than fast enough. Oh my god, I just fell, I suck. So the next part of speed bridging is going to be your incline. So like you can obviously just flat bridge the whole time if you want, but strategically it's going to give you a really big disadvantage because your opponents can bridge above you and then jump down and knock you off your bridge, whether it's to the side or like to the end of your bridge. So it's really important that you have an incline when you're bridging. And also creating an incline makes it so that you like kind of need less blocks to get there. Like at this bridge, we're like 5 or 6 blocks higher. I wouldn't need to bridge that much further out. Like I could probably make the jump if this were 5 or 6 blocks higher. I probably couldn't. But anyway, like if you're flat bridging, you're going to need to get a lot closer before you can make this jump. And also, your opponent's going to be able to make that jump back onto your bridge if you're totally flat, which means they can run back to wherever you come from. So having an incline is really, really important if you're like trying to get the strategy of it. So yeah, something like that's basically perfect. Like you want to get as high as you can without taking too much fall damage where you're just going to lose the fight. Because you're probably going to end up dropping down on whoever and fighting them, and you're going to have to either knock them away in time so you can break their bed, or kill them, break their bed, and then kill them again after they respawn. So going up is like literally the most important thing when it comes to speed bridging outside of actually bridging. Either way you slice it, whether or not you're using your index and your middle finger to hold A and S or S and D, you're going to have your thumb available. Now, for the most part, everybody I know uses their thumb on spacebar, and it should be unoccupied, so you should be able to just use your thumb to go up. Now, the timing for the incline is really weird. So, I mean, it's a really common beginner tactic to just kind of do your incline before you even start the bridge, and you can just hold shift the entire time. And you can literally just go up like this and just hit spacebar and then start your flat bridge. Now, this is how I used to do it, but then I just kind of practiced getting the incline like in the middle of my bridge, something like that. And it's all about your mouse clicks. So, I mean, you can, you know, just go up if you want like this. I'm shifting on shifting here, but you know, you can just go up and then start your flat bridge. But that's a little more inefficient, and that's because you're gonna have to travel up this every single time you want to get on this bridge, and that's just slower than if you were to do it in the middle of your bridge. And my grandpa's mowing my lawn, and it's kind of messing with my audio, but it's okay. So if you're bridging something like this, it's a lot easier to run up because you can keep sprinting. So you can just do something like this and then kind of time your jumps to match up with, you know, whenever you're actually going. And that's way faster than if you were to just staircase, because then you'd be hitting your face on the block in front of you every time you wanted to go up. And that's just inefficient when it comes to like running up the bridge. So the best way to do this is to just kind of take it slow. So you want to do your bridges, and you can even like totally stop and then get to the end of the block and then just right click twice, like in the middle of your jump. Because you want to make sure you get that first one early, so you're actually placing it on the side of the block, and then the second click is going to place it on top of it. So it's like boom, 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 boom. And you can just kind of get used to it like that. And you're going to have to get used to the timing, because whenever you're clicking, it's really easy to just fly off on accident and like mess up your shift. But your shift is going to be at a pretty similar time. So you're going to need to practice and get used to the timing. Because you could do something like that. It's really easy to do something like that if your shift timing is off. Or maybe sometimes your click doesn't register. I'm able to double click, so I have a little more like redundancy whenever I'm bridging, so I don't mess that up as much. But it's really important to just like practice and get your timing down. especially when you're going up like this. But basically, whenever you want to hit your spacebar, you're just going to want to click twice instead of once, basically right as you hit your jump. So in terms of like how frequently you should press your spacebar, I would say every 3 or 4 blocks. So something like this would be pretty ideal. So yeah, you really are only going to end up inclining like 4 or 5 blocks. You don't need to like always go up, because then you're just going to end up taking a lot of fall damage. I mean, if you're really good with ladders, I guess it's fine, but there are a few maps, like Air Show is a really good example of a map where ladders aren't as useful on your first rush, because there's not a lot of spots to clutch. I mean, a map like Acropolis, where you can kind of clutch on the side of the bases, like this area, because you're bridging from the side, you can ladder on these parts, so I mean, it'll be a little more like ladder friendly for your first rush. But I mean, for the most part, you don't want to go too high, because you're going to end up taking like 3 or 4 hearts of fall damage if you're that high, and that could just totally mess up your first fight and could ruin the entire game for you. So now we're going to talk about diagonal speed bridging. This is a little different, and for me specifically, I have a mouse that can double click, so I can just double click and place 2 blocks like this. So as you can see, I'm only clicking once, but I was still placing 2 blocks. Just like that. Okay, I only placed 1 there because I fucking suck. But yeah, I mean, with me, I can double click. However, even if you're in a similar like situation as me, where 1 click can place 2 blocks, you don't want to rely on that, just in case you miss your double click. So you can still kind of follow along with me. So this time you're only going to want to be holding S, and you're going to be going straight back, and then you just want to get like on the corner of the block there, just like this. You want to be like slightly off to one side. I personally favor the right side of the block, but I mean, if you're on the left side of the block, it's fine. I mean, in a perfect world, you actually should be pretty good with both. So, because it's going to be like really often where you just kind of like accidentally switch sides. Like you could shift a little too late, or like hold shift for too long, and all of a sudden you're bridging from the other side. So if you're used to bridging from both of those sides, it favors. Like I literally just had to switch there, and that was totally on accident. Like I'm not even moving my mouse, and I just had to switch. So it's pretty common to accidentally switch sides, and you just want to make sure that you're used to both of them. So anyway, the whole trick is to just click twice, and then unshift, and then reshift. So it's basically the exact same thing, except you're clicking twice. So it is really easy to accidentally like move your mouse down the block, because you don't have as much room between the middle and the bottom of the block as you do if you're going straight. Like as you can see, there's a lot more room, plus you're moving diagonally, which creates even more room. So it's a lot easier to accidentally bring your cursor to the end of the block and not actually like register a click. Like the difference between that and like I'm placing it right here, so you probably got like just a few pixels where you're actually not clicking, and then you could just fall off. Yeah, you just want to make sure that your hand is really steady and that your clicks are pretty consistent, because it's really easy to like click really hard and then your mouse like moves, and I mean over time that could just end up like I just did it right there. Like it can accidentally move your mouse down or up, and then all of a sudden you're not clicking, and then you fail your bridge, and then you lose the Bed Wars game because you're bad. Now, it's also really important that you incline here, because there's going to be a lot of times where you're like diagonal bridging to your like Diamond Gen or something like that, like a Lighthouse or like Glacier or even Lightstone, even though that map sucks, where you're basically going to need to diagonal bridge to get anywhere. So it's really important that you are able to diagonally bridge up, so that way you have an advantage on your opponents when you're going to PvP them. And it's basically the same thing where you just want to like time your spaces. It also helps if you're like really good at clicking fast, because it gives you like more redundancy. Like I said, a lot of people just butterfly click when they're diagonal bridging, because I mean it gets to the point where if you're clicking a lot, you're basically 100% consistent with it. Because I mean there's so many clicks that like it's more than enough to place those 2 blocks, because honestly it probably is easier and it's less like timing based if you're just doing that. So I mean if you're just like clicking a lot, then it's going to be a lot easier to go up. So like when you're going up, you can hear me jitter clicking. So yeah, you can hear me going up really high just because I'm clicking a lot, and that's because it's more about like click redundancy. Look at that! See, look, you can just do that. So yeah, you just want to like hold your shift a little longer when you're at the edge of the block, and then jump, and then place a bunch of blocks. So this is basically like staircasing diagonally. You're not going to want to do that unless you're like I mean, intentionally trying to get above somebody. Like on Lighthouse, for example, if you're bridging from the Diamond Gen to somebody else's island to go break their bed, you're probably going to want to go a little higher. And if they're bridging up towards you as well, and you're going to like basically need to get high ground if you want to win the fight, then yeah, you're going to staircase. But most of the time, you can get away with just going up like a few times, exactly like the straight bridge. Because once again, if you go up too high, then like something like this is perfect. If you end up going too high, you're going to take too much fall damage and lose the fight. But it's all about like practice and timing, and if you know like what you're trying to practice, it's a lot more useful. So you just want to make sure you click, unshift, reshift, and then click, unshift, reshift, and just do that. And then you can mix a spacebar into it every now and then. But I mean, honestly, if you want to just get started by flat bridging, don't be afraid to just like kind of shift the whole time and like kind of, you know, do all the incline beforehand and then just go straight. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's a really good way to get practice for just like the flat bridging beforehand. Nice little clutch from me there. So yeah, don't be afraid to just do the incline first if you're learning. And then you could end up eventually like mixing it in with the rest of your bridge like this. So yeah, that's basically it. If you want a staircase, that's like an entirely new like category where you're just basically gonna want to be jitter clicking a lot. It's like you can in theory time your staircases, but I mean, once again, it's kind of like with the going up when you're doing it diagonally, where I mean your click redundancy is going to be a lot more important, so you can get away with just like clicking really fast, like I am right now, and you're going to be fine. And it's more about just like timing it in general. Anyway, I'm not even going to get started with diagonal staircase because I'm not good enough for that. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It was mostly just the mechanics, like that's what's really important about this. Like if you can consistently get your shift unshift down and like timing it with your clicks, even if you're going slow, I mean, eventually with practice, you can speed up and just end up doing something like this, and it'll look a lot cooler. And you'll get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, depending on what you're into. And yeah, that's like the whole trick. So you just want to get your fundamentals down and then speed it up with practice. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.